Thought I would give you guys a little story since I'm stuck in traffic. This is crazy. I'm just in a gigantic line sitting here on the freeway. I used to be really into mixed martial arts, and what got me into that, so I had always been into the UFC. It's hilarious because I was into the UFC when it first started. I used to get VHS tapes of Ken Shamrock and Hoist Gracie. I watched all of those UFC 1 fights back when it was first starting out. Nobody watched it back then. And I was always really into it. I wanted to know how to do it. Fast forward to my teenage years, and I was a really strong, fit kid. And my friends all got into wrestling, and I did not. And so there were a couple times, like my best friend, we wrestled, and I completely dominated. But I outweighed him probably by like 10, 15 pounds. So it wasn't fair, but still I like dominated. And then fast forward from that about a year, and my stepbrother challenged me to wrestle as well. He outweighed me by like, I don't even know how much. I think about 30 pounds, maybe 40. And I dominated on that one as well. I just completely dominated. And so at that point I was so overconfident. I was like, I am a beast. I was working out a lot. I was just really in shape, and I figured there was no way that anybody could out-grapple me. So fast forward from that about 3 years, and I was working at a box store in the receiving department, and we were all unloading this freight truck in the back. And a couple of my friends were wrestlers in high school, and I don't know how we got on the topic, but I was betting them that they couldn't take me and all this because I was clearly like way more in shape than they were. And I could probably hold my own against one of them, maybe a little bit, but even just one of them was like owning me. And then both of them would definitely own me, like, and I wasn't even close. Wasn't even close. I'm pretty sure that like just a single one of them could take me, which really like blew my confidence. I was like, well, there goes that. There goes the thought that I couldn't be out-grappled, especially by people who were in worse shape than I was. And so at that point, I met this guy who was doing a lot of mixed martial arts. And at that point, I had done it, but not trained by professionals. So at that point, I got a hold of him, and I was like, dude, these guys just totally annihilated me. There's nothing I could do about it. I was like, it's actually embarrassing. So I want to learn some stuff. And so we got together and we started grappling in these like high school football fields. And we were doing that constantly. We became really good friends, him and I. He had videos of him wrestling random people in the theater that he worked at. He would just like dominate everybody. And he was really into it. And like me, he hadn't had professional training. And so we met this guy. I don't think I'll mention his name, but I don't know why. It just feels a little weird to mention his name, but he was the featherweight champion in Idaho. He ran the team called Team Hardcore for cage fighting, our local cage fighting team. And he was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He was a Gracie brown belt. He was trained by the Gracies. This guy is legit. So me and my friend met with this guy, and he's like, I'll train with you guys. And we were kind of like the first ones, because this guy's wanting to start a gym and all this, and me and my friend were kind of the first ones to be at this guy's side. I mean, we were the first ones to train with him. We were the first ones to start this whole club kind of thing. And it started out just in his garage. And so we would show up. We both lived in Boise. We would go all the way to Nampa, in order to train with this guy in his garage. And we did this several days a week for months and months, all the way through the winter time. And then eventually he moved it all to Boise into a legit gym, and we started training there. And the stipulation was that we would fight for his team, Team Hardcore. And I thought that was awesome. That was an awesome idea. I really thought that was like, you know, I had seen it on the videos. I'd been a fan for so long. The thought of fighting in a cage was just like the pinnacle. I was like, that sounds amazing. And so I trained with this guy for about a year. Got actually pretty proficient at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and grappling. Got to where I could hold my own, particularly in the guard, and I could, you know, keep people from landing strikes very well. And so anyways, my first bout came, and at that point I had only done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I had trained with no gloves on and with a t-shirt on. The t-shirt absorbs your sweat, and having no gloves on gives you perfect grip that is like not anything near what you'll receive when you have gloves on. The gloves just really hinder your ability to grab things. So here I am at this first bout, standing there. I'm like, what did I sign up for? I'm standing there before the fight. My song comes on, the spotlight goes on me, and I'm like, I'm gonna die. Like, why am I putting myself in a literal nightmare to fight another trained assassin? So I was like, this isn't a sport. This is like trying to murder each other. Why am I here? I was so terrified. So I walked my way through the crowd. This is at what was then called the Big Easy. I can't remember what it's called now. And everybody's cheering, and the lights are flashing, and the whole thing. And I'm like, I'm acting cool, but inside I'm like, well, I'm gonna die. So I get into the cage, and this, you know, I'm waiting, and then my opponent, you know, the same thing happens with him. The light flashes on him, and this guy's, by the way, we already met at the weigh-ins, and I cut weight for this fight. I was normally at 174 pounds, and I was ripped, like really ripped. For this fight, I had to be 155 pounds. And I did cut that much weight, but it was because I starved myself. And so at the weigh-ins, this guy saw me and he didn't want to fight me anymore. He was like, this guy's huge. How is he 155 pounds? Because I looked like I was a cut 180 pound person. Little did he know I had nothing in my gas tank. And right when we connected for the first round, I was spent. Not only that, we went to the ground, and I found out immediately that I couldn't grab on anything because my gloves I had gloves on suddenly. And also, it felt like he was like holding onto a fish. I couldn't get leverage on anything. And so I learned immediately to train like you fight. Those deer, right when I hit stop on the recording, those deer went running across the road and almost got hit by cars. That was pretty crazy. Look at all the colors. These trees are just beautiful this time of year. That's the beauty of death for you. So mixed martial arts was it was a lot of fun. I did get injured a lot, but it was pretty low impact when you consider my past before that, because I did a lot of motocross, and it was always horrible, serious injuries in motocross. I mean, I would get just pummeled. But in mixed martial arts, getting punched in the face didn't seem all that bad. And so I've already told the story up until my first fight, and so I'll tell that part again, where I had my first fight. I was horrified. This guy, you know, we ended up on the ground. It was a really boring fight, by the way. I only got hit like once. I ended up with a black eye. But I had really good ground defense, and so I could avoid strikes really well because I was good and proficient at mixed martial arts, not mixed martial arts, at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But what I needed help on was mixed martial arts as a whole, and I needed to work on my striking. And so I ended up on the ground the whole fight. I mean, it was all 3 rounds just on the ground, and nothing happening. He ended up winning by decision. And then fight 2 was at Meridian Speedway, and I ended up against a kickboxer who had just turned pro. They had told us before the fight that they wanted it to go fast, and so they wouldn't allow me to grapple very long. If I wanted to grapple, I had to get it done quickly. And so that's lame as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, because I was, you know, I'm not trying to make it go fast. I'm trying to be a boa constrictor and get this thing choked out. Get him choked out quick, but, you know, work my way into position, sometimes slowly. What ended up happening is we kind of got into a grappling match and throwing some strikes. I actually connected a couple times that were fairly okay, and we grabbed each other, and he ended up getting me in a headlock, and we fell to the ground that way, and he was trying to choke me. I ended up getting out of it and ground and pounding. After that, he turns around, I jump on his back, and what you need to know about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is your hooks are very, by hooks I mean your legs. You need to hook your legs into theirs, and those are really important to get connected before you can really sink it in. There's nothing they can do about your choke. Okay, so I jumped on his back. I didn't have one of my hooks in, and so I reached down to the ground to help myself get leverage so I didn't fall off of him while I got my other hook in. When I touched the ground, the referee stood us up. I was so pissed. I was so mad because right when I put my hand on the ground to help myself get my other hook in, I got stood up. Instead, you know, I would have had that fight won pretty much guaranteed, because he was done. He was just running away from me. I was pretty much constricting him slowly, and whatever, I ended up losing. The ref stood us up, and we ended up striking a couple more times. I connected surprisingly again, and then he ended up roundhousing me right in the face, and I went night-night. After that, you know, that I felt like I got gypped on that one, but regardless, after that was a bout with a little bit heavier person. He was taller and heavier than me by a little bit. I don't think he made weight, but I accepted the fight anyway. And he wasn't that experienced. I don't even know what his discipline was, but he seemed like a striker. And again, I was kind of taking it slow with him. This guy seemed a little arrogant to me. He was like doing hand gestures and things like that. Anyways, I ended up choking him out. And then for my final one, I did a fight against this guy who was a boxer, I believe. And I outstruck him. I was getting way better at that point, but I was a better striker than he was. I was getting to where I could strike pretty okay. That was the only fight that I looked pretty decent in. It was my last one. I think I knocked him out before I even had him choked out. The ref just didn't see it. He fell into me when I knocked him out. He kind of fell into my arms, and then I grabbed him and did a front choke. I just jumped on him and let him fall on top of me in a front choke. and the fight was won by front choke, and he was out. He was out cold, but it wasn't because I choked him, it was because he was knocked out. So anyways, that was my last fight that I did. I ended up going to college directly after that, and I just didn't have time to compete anymore, although I did train for a while after that. But I was going to college full-time. I was pretty busy. I was a pretty busy guy. Anyways, guys, that's the story of my mixed martial arts fun times. Catch you on the next one. Peace.